So the big question today is, how do we become more scientific or strategic about pricing big design and development projects? So if you're anything like me, especially when I started, I had no idea what to charge. And so I knew what we could do. I didn't really know how much time it was going to take and all the resources involved. And you just kind of figure things out as you go. And so when people would ask, how much is that going to cost? I would look to the ceiling as if the price was up there and then just kind of pull a number out of the sky and just say, I think it's going to be $5,000. And that would be maybe for a full rebrand, logo design, web design and messaging. I think we could do that for about $5,000. Now, as we started doing work, we realized oh my gosh, the level of work that we wanted to do was kind of hindered by the budget that we would set early on. And so we wanted to get more strategic, more scientific about how we were coming up with proposals. And so that's what I want to show you guys today, is kind of how to think through a big design project. And so the hypothetical board or the client that we're looking at is really a conglomeration of a lot of the type of work that Butler Branding takes on. So if you watched any of our other videos, we make money three ways: one-off projects, retainer clients, and customer service. So the big one-off projects, these are higher level, higher ticket projects for us, and they infuse cash into the business. So this is a big one-off project, right? And for us, what a big one-off project would be, which is we're calling a full rebrand. Now, when I first started, we were charging $5,000 for a complete rebrand. Now our price is about $40,000. And for some people, that's way under. For a lot of you guys, especially on our YouTube channel, you're like, $40,000, what the heck how'd you get that number? And so for this kind of a client, this is three things, basically. This is strategy, brand identity, and a new website. So when we do a full rebrand, we're assuming that we're going to carry out that rebrand through a website. So we do a lot of brand identity, a lot of website redesign. In order for us to do brand identity and website, we have to come up with a strategy. And so in this case, a very standard cost is going to be about $40,000. So instead of just pulling that number from the ceiling, this is kind of the breakdown of how we're thinking more scientifically about that number. And it's not like we pick the number and then work backwards from there. We actually list out the process and everything that we're going to include, along with estimated allocated hours that we're going to put to each of those phases. And so for this type of a project, there's about 9 things that I have to consider in executing this. So if you look at a website, it's basically words, graphics, a layout, and then you develop it, right? And so, there's words, pictures, graphics, they're all on a layout, and then you have to develop that. Well, how do you do that? And then not just the website, but also with a new brand, a new logo. So the 9 things that we think through in this type of a project is strategic development. So how are we developing the strategy? There's graphics and animations. So not only do we have to design maybe custom icons and custom graphic elements for the website, a user interface kit, but also the brand identity. And then we might have to animate some of those things. Photography and video. We want to try to use as little stock photo and stock video as possible, try to get real, authentic photo video. That means we're going to have to hire a photographer or have a video person go out there. Content curation. This includes not only the messaging, because we do create a messaging strategy, but also compiling all the content that's going to go on their website. UX design, which is the visual layout, the design of the website. Then we actually take that UX design and develop it. So we call this the dev site build. So we completely design a website, and then that's usually in Figma. And then we basically fill out Figma to a T, to where the entire website is designed, the layout, the user experience is designed, and then our developer takes all of those assets and then builds the actual website on our sandbox area. So that's the dev site build. And then we have to account for revisions, and then we have to account for the launch and project management. So again, strategy, brand identity, website design, about $40,000. But before we get to that cost, we have to think about what is it going to take to do this type of a project. Here are the 9 things. Now you see there's some red numbers right here, and then there's some green numbers or percentages right here. So I listed out the entire process, everything that I have to account for, but each one of these things I have to think, okay, well, strategy development. You want to put an hour number there, so that on here we put 50 hours for strategic development. So on a project like this, we're going to spend about 50 hours to develop the strategy. Well, why 50 hours? How is that 50 hours going to be spent? I only did this for the strategic development. I'm not going to do it for the rest of it. You guys can kind of get creative for how you're going to do this, but for the strategic development, how we came across 50 hours is discovery is a 4-hour session. So this is a half-day facilitated workshop. I'm the discovery facilitator, so that's 4 hours, up to 4 hours. Sometimes it could be less than that, sometimes it could be more, but typically we could get it done in a half day. A 6-hour review. So this is an internal review with me and my team. And the reason why it's 6 hours is because I take the 4-hour notes, the notes from this 4-hour session, and I consolidate it into a 1-hour meeting with my team. And that's a review with 6 people. So 1-hour meeting with 6 people is 6 hours. So 4 hours of discovery, 6 hours of review, 10 hours for our graphic designer to come up with some logo concepts and a design style. So 10 hours for a UX strategy. This is not the entire UX design. This is just to come up with the initial strategy for the UX. 6 hours for a marketing strategy. 4 hours to create some messaging concepts, 6 hours for an internal review. So basically my team goes out, they create, so after our internal review, they create their assets, and then we have another internal review and we review it all together. And that's another 1-hour meeting. And then we reveal it to the client, which is a 2-hour meeting. And then it takes about 2 hours to project manage that. So again, just for this first part of developing the strategy, it's 50 hours, which includes all of these things, and that's the time breakdown. So if I were just to create a comprehensive strategy, my minimum level of engagement for strategic development is $5,000, 50 hours times $100 an hour. So that's an easy way to do it, is an hourly model, okay? So that's just the first part, but we're gonna do not just the strategy, we're gonna do the brand identity and the website. So once we have the graphic strategy, we have all of that stuff approved, then we can go on to graphics, and we have about 17 hours allocated for animating graphics and creating graphics, the user interface kit, the UI kit, the color palette, the branding guidelines, buttoning, all of that kind of stuff up is in step 2. Photography and video, we're allocating about 20 hours worth of photo video time, 15 hours to write content and curate all the content for the website. Then our experience designer, the one who's actually designing the website in Figma, takes all of the content that's been curated, the photos, the graphic assets, and they build the website according to the UX strategy. And that takes about 50 hours for approximately, and this is just this website, this is like a rough estimate for anywhere from 10 to maybe about 20 pages. Okay, this isn't like a gigantic website. This is just a pretty standard informational website. It might take us about 50 hours to design the full website. Once that's designed, our developer will develop it. There's a lot less time developing because we have the design pretty much filled out to a T. We account for 10 hours of revisions, 6 hours to launch the website when it's done. And the project manager, this one is the interesting one. It's 176 hours because the project manager is involved in every single aspect of this project. This is about 176 hours. So if you tally up all the numbers here, it's about 364 hours. I think I did the math right. I wrote this down before. I didn't actually double check, so hopefully that's right. And so 364 hours plus a 10% variable for who knows what might come up, right? So we have no idea. We have to have a little bit of padding there. So we add a little bit of 10% padding, and that equals about 400 hours. The way we would come up with this, the easiest way, if you're not doing value-based pricing, or if you're not doing just project-based or value-based, you're doing hourly, right? I would never put it's gonna be 400 hours on here. It's just like, here's the final cost, here's everything, here's our process. But the way I'm thinking about it is our minimum hourly rate needs to be $100 per hour, which is how we come up with $40,000. Okay, so this is coming a little more strategic about pricing. Now here's the thing, what if someone doesn't have $40,000? There's a couple things you can do. One is you have to take away from, so what is your budget? What is your max spend? What is the maximum amount you could spend on this? And you have to get that from the client. And what I've done here is not only allocated the hours, but we put percentages of what those hours represent. So it's not just about hours, it's about percentages. So we say, okay, strategy is 13%, graphics and animations about 4.5%, photo videos about 5.5%. There's a few ways you can think about this. This percentage of time that I'm dedicating to this, or percentage of the budget that I can spend on this. So for example, if this number changes to 20K, they say the most that I can spend is $20,000. Instead of thinking about how much I'm gonna reduce from each thing, you say, how much can I invest in this area? And you do a percentage. So 13% of $20,000 is gonna be your strategy budget. That's how much we can allocate to the strategy. 4.5% of the 20,000 is my graphics budget. So however you're doing this, if you're outsourcing, if you're building a team, if you're thinking about budgeting, think about it in two ways: is what's everything that I have to do, how long, and what are the resources that I'm gonna allocate to that, and then put a percentage value to that. And that helps you be a little bit more scientific with your pricing. Hopefully that helps. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Make sure this content gets out to more people. And if you are a creative entrepreneur and you're looking to level up, maybe you feel stuck, learn from my mistakes. At agency.butlerbranding.com, we have a free webinar that talks about everything I've learned in scaling Butler Branding since we started in 2012. I'm talking about everything I've learned from brand positioning, marketing, sales, strategy, and project management. So learn to level up for free at agency.butlerbranding.com.